My name is Michael Reed, and if you had asked me a year ago what my life looked like, I would have told you it was almost perfect. I was 35, living in a comfortable house just outside Boston, working a stable job as a project manager, and married to the woman I thought was my soulmate, Sophie Reed. From the outside, people envied our marriage. Friends would often joke, "Michael, you two are the couple we all want to be," and I would smile, proud that I had built this life with her. But what I didn't know back then was that sometimes the most perfect-looking lives are built on the biggest lies. Sophie was beautiful in that classic way that made people turn their heads when she walked into a room. She had chestnut brown hair, soft green eyes, and this effortless charm that made everyone love her. But to me, what made her special was the way she used to laugh at my dumb jokes, the way she would fall asleep with her head on my chest, and the way she once promised me that no matter what, she would always choose me. I believed her with every fiber of my being. For years, I thought she was the anchor of my life, the person who made me stronger. In the beginning, our marriage really did feel like a fairy tale. We had late-night drives, weekend trips to the coast, long conversations about our dreams. She would leave little sticky notes on my desk that said things like, "I love you. Don't forget to smile today." And every time I saw one, my heart felt lighter. Even after 5 years of marriage, I still looked at her and thought, "God, I'm lucky." But life has a cruel way of reminding you that nothing is ever as perfect as it seems. It started slowly, in ways that were so small I almost didn't notice. Sophie, who once couldn't go 5 minutes without telling me about her day, became quieter. She started spending more time on her phone, always tilting the screen away from me. If I walked into the room, she'd quickly lock it and smile like nothing had happened. I told myself it was harmless. Maybe she was just tired. Maybe she was talking to her friends. Then came the late nights. Sophie had always worked as a marketing consultant, and sure, there were times she stayed late for client meetings, but suddenly it was happening every week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, always the same days. I'd call her and sometimes she wouldn't answer, texting me back an hour later with some excuse about being stuck in traffic or just wrapping things up. At first, I believed her. I wanted to. Trust is the foundation of any marriage, right? But the more I trusted, the more uneasy I felt. Because alongside those late nights came a new version of Sophie. She started buying expensive dresses I had never seen before, using perfumes that weren't her usual ones, and spending more time in front of the mirror before she left. I told myself she was just trying to feel confident, but something inside me whispered a different truth. She wasn't dressing up for me. The emotional distance grew with every passing week. Sophie used to curl up next to me on the couch, her head resting on my shoulder as we watched our favorite shows. Now, she claimed she was too tired and went upstairs early, scrolling endlessly on her phone behind a locked door. She used to kiss me passionately before leaving for work. Now her kisses were quick, like a duty, not a desire. I started feeling like a roommate instead of a husband. One night, I finally asked her, "Sophie, is everything okay with us? You feel far away." She froze for a moment before forcing a laugh. "Michael, don't be silly. I'm just stressed with clients, that's all. Nothing's wrong." Her words were convincing enough, but her eyes told another story. They didn't shine the way they used to when she looked at me. They looked guilty. The turning point came on a Friday evening. Sophie told me she had a late client dinner downtown and might not be home until midnight. I didn't think much of it until around 8:30 p.m. when my phone buzzed with a message from my old friend, Josh Miller. "Hey man," the message read. "I swear I just saw Sophie at that Italian place near the river. She wasn't alone." My heart pounded so hard I thought it might break through my chest. I called Josh immediately, trying to sound calm though my voice trembled. "Are you sure it was her?" I asked. "Positive," Josh replied. "She was with some guy. They looked close." I didn't want to assume anything, but it didn't look like a client dinner, Michael. I felt my stomach drop, but instead of rushing downtown, I forced myself to stay put. If I confronted her without proof, she would deny it, twist it, and make me look like the paranoid husband. I couldn't let that happen. When Sophie came home that night, just past midnight, her hair slightly messy and the faint scent of cologne clinging to her, I pretended everything was normal. "How was the client dinner?" I asked, masking the bitterness in my voice. "Exhausting," she sighed with a smile. "I'm glad to be home." That was the first real lie I knew she told me. From that night on, I couldn't stop noticing the cracks. Sophie's stories didn't add up. She'd say she was meeting a client at a certain place, but small details slipped through, like when she accidentally mentioned a restaurant I knew wasn't near her client's office. I began quietly keeping track, writing down dates and times, matching them with her excuses. The final straw came one Saturday morning. She left her laptop open on the counter while she went to shower. I shouldn't have looked, but my gut screamed at me to check. And there it was, a hotel reservation confirmation under her name for 2 guests. My vision blurred as I read the words. It wasn't business. It wasn't clients. It was betrayal staring me in the face. I wanted to scream, to throw the laptop against the wall, to march upstairs and demand the truth. But instead, I closed it quietly and sat there, numb. Because now I didn't just suspect, now I knew. My wife, the woman I gave everything to, was cheating on me. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I decided if she wanted to play games, I'd play smarter. I started collecting proof, screenshots of her emails, photos of her car parked outside places she claimed she wasn't, even hiring a private investigator when I needed more concrete evidence. Piece by piece, the picture became clear. Sophie was having an affair with Ethan Brooks, a slick, younger guy from her building. The investigator caught them together, laughing, touching, kissing in public as if I didn't exist. I read their messages, too. She told him things she hadn't told me in years, that he made her feel alive, that she couldn't stop thinking about him, that she wished they could start fresh together. Each word was another knife in my chest. But instead of letting it break me, I turned the pain into something else. A plan. Our 6th wedding anniversary was coming up in a few weeks. Sophie had gone out of her way to book a fancy dinner at one of the most prestigious restaurants in town. She wanted it to be special. I knew right then that would be the night I ended it all. Not quietly, not in the shadows. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to expose her in a way she'd never forget. In the days leading up to our anniversary, I pretended everything was fine. I smiled. I kissed her. I even bought her flowers. She thought she had me completely fooled, that I was blind to her double life. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, I was gathering every piece of evidence, preparing to unveil the truth at the perfect moment. On the morning of our anniversary, Sophie kissed me softly and whispered, "Happy anniversary, darling. Tonight is going to be magical." I smiled back, holding her close for what might be the last time. "Yes," I whispered, my voice steady. "Tonight will be unforgettable." Little did she know, the night she thought would be a celebration of love would be the night her carefully constructed lies would collapse in front of everyone. The stage was set. The curtain was ready to rise. The night of our 6th wedding anniversary arrived with an almost cruel irony. Sophie had spent the entire week planning it as though she were the most devoted wife in the world. She booked one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, a place she had been begging me to take her to for years. From her perspective, this night was going to be a showcase of love, of commitment, of the perfect marriage she pretended we still had. From my perspective, it was going to be the night her mask shattered into pieces she could never put back together. The day started like any other. I went to work, buried myself in routine, but my mind never left the thought of what was coming. Every email I answered, every meeting I attended, every cup of coffee I drank. There was only one phrase playing in the back of my head. Tonight is the night. When I got home, Sophie was already upstairs getting ready. I heard the blow dryer humming, the soft clink of makeup brushes against glass. I stood at the bottom of the stairs for a long moment, staring upward, imagining her applying lipstick in the mirror, perfecting herself for a man who wasn't me. My chest tightened, but I forced the anger down. Anger wasn't my weapon tonight. Cold, calculated exposure was. "Michael?" She called from upstairs, her voice light, cheerful. "Could you grab my silver clutch from the closet? I'm almost ready." I picked it up, my hands brushing over the glittery surface. This little accessory would soon be clutched by hands trembling with shame instead of confidence. When she finally came downstairs, I almost couldn't believe how flawless she looked. Her hair fell in perfect waves, her green eyes highlighted with smoky makeup, lips painted in a deep scarlet shade I had never seen her wear before. The red dress clung to her body like it was made for her alone. She looked like the kind of woman men turned their heads for the moment she walked into a room. And yet, to me, all of it was fake. An illusion. "You look stunning," I said, my voice calm. She smiled, her lips curving as if she believed the compliment. "And you look so handsome in that suit. This will be a night to remember." "Oh," I replied, sliding on my watch. "It definitely will." The drive to the restaurant was filled with small talk. She chatted about work, about how she wanted us to take a vacation to Italy next summer, about how she'd seen a friend's new baby. Her words were smooth, carefully chosen, designed to make me believe she was invested in our life together. Meanwhile, my mind played back the photos of her kissing Ethan outside that hotel, her arms wrapped around him like she used to wrap them around me. When we pulled up to the restaurant, a valet opened her door. Sophie stepped out gracefully, smiling at the flashes of light reflecting off the elegant glass entrance. She thrived in places like this, where appearances meant everything. Inside, the restaurant glowed with soft golden light. Chandeliers sparkled above, and the quiet hum of conversation filled the air, mingling with the delicate notes of a violinist near the corner. Waiters in black vests moved between tables with practiced precision. Every table had white tablecloths, candles flickering in crystal holders, roses arranged in perfect symmetry. We were escorted to a table right in the center of the room. I had requested it weeks in advance, knowing it would give me the stage I needed. From here, everyone would see, everyone would hear. As the waiter poured our wine, Sophie lifted her glass and gave me a radiant smile. "To 6 years of marriage," she said. I held her gaze, letting the silence stretch longer than it should. Then I clinked my glass lightly against hers. "To 6 years," I replied slowly, "and to the truth that always finds its way out." Her smile faltered for half a second, confusion flickering in her eyes, before she brushed it off with a laugh. Dinner began. She complimented the decor, commented on the wine, even leaned across the table to touch my hand as if nothing had changed. But I could see the flicker of guilt in her eyes, the way she avoided holding my gaze too long. My phone buzzed once in my pocket, a discreet message from the private investigator sitting at the bar, confirming he was ready with the camera. Halfway through the main course, Sophie tilted her head playfully. "So," she said, "did you get me anything for our anniversary? Or am I supposed to be patient and wait until later?" I reached into my bag and pulled out the black folder. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't waver. I had waited too long for this moment. "Actually," I said, sliding the folder across the table, "I did get you something unforgettable." She looked intrigued, almost excited, as she opened it. But the second her eyes landed on the photographs, the color drained from her face. Pictures of her and Ethan filled the pages. Hand in hand, kissing in the street, entering a hotel together at night. Each one undeniable. Her breath hitched. She flipped through them quickly, her fingers trembling. "Michael, this isn't... Don't..." I cut her off, my voice low and sharp. "Don't insult me with another lie." Her eyes darted around the room, suddenly aware that we weren't alone. People at nearby tables had noticed her reaction and were glancing our way. "Michael, please," she whispered urgently, leaning forward. "Not here. Let's talk about this privately. Please." I sat back, my voice rising just enough for the surrounding tables to hear. "Privately? That's what you had with Ethan Brooks, wasn't it? All those hotel rooms, those little rendezvous you thought I'd never find out about. You had plenty of privacy then." Gasps rippled through the restaurant. Heads turned. Forks paused mid-air. Sophie's hands shot out to cover the papers, but I pulled them back and spread them out across the table like a deck of cards. The text messages were there too. Her confessions of love, her dreams of running away with him, Her cruel words about me being distant, while she poured her heart out to another man. She looked utterly shattered, tears pooling in her eyes. "Michael, I'm sorry," she choked. "I never wanted to hurt you. I don't even know how it happened." I leaned in, my words cutting like glass. "You don't know how it happened? You made reservations, Sophie. You booked hotels under your name. You bought new dresses, new perfumes, new lies. That's not an accident. That's not a mistake. That's a choice." A couple at the next table whispered to each other, shaking their heads. Someone further back muttered, "Unbelievable." The humiliation spread across Sophie's face like wildfire. She reached for my hand desperately. "We can fix this. Please. I'll end it. I'll do whatever it takes. Just don't do this to me here." I pulled my hand away. "You already did this to us. You ended this marriage the moment you chose him over me." The waiter approached nervously, placing the check on the table. I looked at him calmly. "It's already paid for," I said. "Paid for with 6 years of my loyalty and love." Unfortunately, Sophie here decided that wasn't enough. Sophie was sobbing now, her mascara streaking down her face, her hands shaking as she tried to gather the papers. She looked around at the sea of strangers staring at her, judgment burning in their eyes. The woman who once walked into rooms with her head held high was now crumbling under the weight of exposure. I stood, buttoning my jacket with deliberate calm. I leaned down one last time, meeting her broken gaze. "Happy anniversary, Sophie. I hope Ethan is worth everything you just lost." And with that, I turned and walked away. The silence of the restaurant followed me out into the cool night air. For the first time in months, I felt free. The lies, the suspicion, the weight of betrayal, it was gone. She no longer held power over me. As I handed my valet ticket to the young man waiting by the curb, I glanced back once at the glowing restaurant windows. I could almost picture Sophie still sitting there, surrounded by whispers, drowning in shame. The anniversary night she thought would be a celebration of love had become the night her carefully crafted illusion collapsed. And the best part? She never saw it coming. The night I walked out of that restaurant, I thought the hardest part of my journey was over. In many ways, it was. The truth was out. Sophie's carefully guarded secret lay shattered in front of strangers, and her perfect little world had crumbled. But what I didn't realize then was that exposing her affair was only the beginning. The aftermath, the fallout, was where the true test of strength began. The next morning, my phone buzzed before sunrise. Her name lit up the screen over and over again. Calls, messages, voicemails. By the time I finished my coffee, there were 23 unread texts, each one more desperate than the last. "Michael, please call me. I need to explain. It's not what you think. We can fix this. Please, I love you. Don't throw away 6 years. Can we meet? Just talk?" Her words blurred together, a mixture of guilt and panic. But I didn't reply. Not once. Silence was my answer. By noon, she showed up at the house. I watched through the living room window as she stood on the porch, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, yesterday's mascara still staining the corners of her eyes. She knocked. She rang the bell. She even sat on the step with her hands pressed together like a child begging for forgiveness. I didn't open the door. Eventually, she slid an envelope under the frame. Inside was a handwritten letter, the kind people write when text messages fail. Her words spilled across the page. How she regretted everything. How Ethan meant nothing. How she was lost and confused. How she wanted to rebuild what we had. I folded the letter once, set it on the table, and left it there untouched. Some apologies arrive long after the damage is beyond repair. Within a week, the news of what happened at the restaurant spread further than either of us anticipated. Mutual friends called. Some to check on me, some to scold me for humiliating her in public. But I didn't care. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one carrying shame on my back. That burden belonged to her. Ethan, her lover, didn't last long either. I learned through whispers and a few well-placed inquiries that the moment Sophie's life began unraveling, he pulled away. No more late-night texts, no more hotel rendezvous. When the spotlight of scandal shone too bright, he vanished like a coward. The man she threw our marriage away for abandoned her the second things got difficult. Poetic justice. 2 weeks later, I filed for divorce. The lawyer slid the papers across his polished oak desk, his expression sympathetic. "You're doing the right thing," he said. "This kind of betrayal leaves scars that don't heal in marriages. It's better to move forward." I nodded. My voice was steady when I said, "I want it done quickly, clean. No drawn-out battles." But of course, Sophie didn't make it easy. She contested at first, showing up to mediation sessions with tears in her eyes, begging the mediator to believe she could change. "I made a mistake," she sobbed, clutching tissues. "Don't punish me forever." I kept my gaze steady, my tone cold. "You punished yourself when you chose him." She tried everything. Apologies, promises, even manipulation. "If you divorce me," she whispered one afternoon, "I'll have nothing. Do you want that on your conscience?" I stared at her across the table, my jaw set. "You had me. You had a marriage. You had a home. And you threw it away. What happens to you now isn't my responsibility." Her face crumpled, but I didn't waver. I had spent too many nights drowning in pain she created. It was her turn now. As the weeks dragged on, I focused on myself. I went back to the gym, rediscovered old hobbies, reconnected with friends I had neglected during my years of fighting for a marriage that was already dying. Each day I felt a little stronger. Each day, Sophie's voice in my head grew quieter. The final hearing arrived 3 months after that infamous night. Sophie sat across from me in the courtroom, dressed in a modest black dress, her once radiant confidence replaced by exhaustion. She looked smaller somehow, as if the weight of her choices had physically diminished her. When the judge asked if the marriage was irretrievably broken, I answered without hesitation, "Yes." Sophie's voice cracked when she said the same, though I could tell a part of her still hoped I'd change my mind. But the papers were signed. The gavel struck. And just like that, 6 years of marriage ended with the echo of wood on wood. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt an overwhelming sense of closure. Not joy, not triumph, something deeper. Freedom. But my revenge wasn't finished. Not yet, because the world still saw Sophie as the woman I had unmasked. She became the subject of whispers at social gatherings, her reputation stained beyond repair. Invitations to events stopped coming. Friends she once gossiped with turned cold. The life she thrived on, the admiration, the attention, the perfect image, crumbled like sand slipping through her fingers. I never spoke ill of her publicly. I didn't need to. The truth was enough, and truth has a way of spreading faster than lies ever could. Months passed. One evening, I ran into Josh Miller, an old friend of ours, at a coffee shop. He pulled me aside and said, "You know, Sophie's been a wreck. Ethan's long gone. She moved out of that apartment they shared. Last I heard, she's living in a tiny place near downtown, barely making ends meet." I stirred my coffee slowly, letting the information sink in. Did I feel pity? Maybe a sliver of it. But it was buried under layers of clarity. She had made her choices. Now she was living with them. As for me, I flourished. My career advanced, I traveled, I discovered parts of myself I had lost in the shadow of betrayal. I wasn't bitter anymore. I wasn't haunted. I was alive. 1 year after the anniversary night, I found myself standing on a balcony overlooking the ocean during a trip to Greece. The sun dipped low over the water, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold. I thought about Sophie for the first time in weeks. Not with anger, not with longing, just as a memory. A chapter 1 had closed. I realized then that revenge had never truly been about destroying her. It had been about reclaiming myself, exposing her affair, divorcing her, walking away without looking back. That was my justice. Watching her lose everything she thought mattered was only the echo. The real victory was this: I was free. I raised my glass of wine to the horizon and whispered to myself, "Here's to the truth. Here's to new beginnings." And for the first time in a long time, I smiled without any trace of pain.